surprised if I'm still driving at that thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Brian.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, Brian.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Being 7 p.m., I'll call to order the special village board meeting for Tuesday, June 25th, 2024. All members are in attendance. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next on the item on the agenda is village citizens to address the village board. Anyone wishing to speak? Anybody sign in? No. Okay. Item number 4 is approval of the minutes for the village board meeting for June 11th, 2024.
If there are no corrections, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the village board meeting of June 11th of 2024.
Second.
We have a motion by Emmerich, second by Engelhardt. Any further discussion on that item? All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 5, Resolution 24-18, resolution authorizing the issuance and sale of up to $5,709,010 water and sewer system revenue bonds, Series 2024, and providing for other details, covenants with respect thereto. This item did come from Board of Public Works with a recommendation to approve. And we do have Phil here from Ellers to answer any questions that we would have on this item.
If you would like, I can give a short summary. We have a memo that's been put together as well. Okay. Well, good evening. Nice to be back. It's been a little while since I've been in Jackson. Well, we meet periodically, but at the village board meeting. So this is really pertaining to your treatment plant phasing, the first phase of that project. And it's a Clean Water Fund loan through the state DNR program. The memorandum that's been put together really outlines the couple of components that are key. I think one is, purpose. 2 is, what the actual loan terms are, and then recommendations as well. And I'm not going to read this to you, but I'm going to kind of pick off pieces of this that are pertinent. So I'm going to start with a couple of just items that I think need some clarification, because I think there's been some confusion around it. And that is, this says water and sewer system revenue bonds. And the reason it's water and sewer is because you actually have a outstanding market rate revenue bond that is pledged both water and sewer. And to issue any debt for water or sewer on parity, meaning have equal footing for the revenues of the water and sewer system, you have to approve a water and sewer revenue bond, even though it's only going to be paid from the sewer fund. So while it's a joint pledge, it's really a joint pledge, really in name only. The revenues are going to come from the sewer utility for this. But again, because we have outstanding bonds and we have to be on parity with those bonds, it reads water and sewer. So I just want everybody to understand of why that it reads water and sewer, even though sewer is going to pay the full amount of the loan. That really is a key test, and it's called an additional bonds test that was put in place when you did your 2023 revenue bond issue. So an additional bonds test kind of spells out how you have to issue future debt issues on top of or in junction with the existing bonds that are outstanding. So the second is typically when you have a Clean Water Fund or Safe Drinking Water Fund loan, you have a coverage test of 110. So that's the state requirement. And the 110 coverage is $1 of 10 revenue for every dollar of debt service after O&M costs. So that is the requirement for the Clean Water Fund loan. And before you can take out a loan or approve the bonds, you have to demonstrate that you are going to meet that coverage test. It's the same if you're going to issue revenue bonds in the marketplace and not through like the Clean Water Fund loan program. What's different here is, again, because you issued the 2023 revenue bonds, that has a coverage of 125. And so the 125 coverage that is identified here is actually going to, if lack of a better term, trump the 110 coverage. So if you are back in the market for either the next phases of the treatment plan upgrade and/or you want to issue revenue bonds for any kind of water and sewer projects, you're going to have to meet that 125 coverage test going forward. So a little stronger cash flow is required. That's something obviously we monitor for you as part of our kind of long-range cash flows that we do as part of the utility to make sure that we have the coverages necessary to be able to issue the debt. So it says water and sewer, it's only sewer paying it. And in here, it says 110 coverage, but it says or, the 125 is what's gonna have to be met to be able to make sure that you can issue these bonds. The terms of the bonds are very favorable, which is why you are seeking the Clean Water Fund loan. $5.7 million is a 20-year issue at 2.31%. Just to give you a feel, for a 20-year water and sewer revenue bond in the market right now, you would probably be closer to about 4.5%. So almost double the interest rate that you are receiving from the state, which is again why you seek this type of financing when it's an eligible project. And treatment plants are certainly an eligible project that does well on the funding cycle through the DNR. So 2.3%. The bond or the annual debt service is anticipated to be a little over 371,000, maybe a little bit lower once it's all said and done. A couple other requirements that are out there. One is, and we spent some time earlier today talking about these requirements with staff, so they're well aware of this, is that you have to have a redemption fund in the sewer utility. That has to be a separate fund. That's a requirement of the Clean Water Fund loan program. So it's one of the additional requirements that, you know, when you see funding at lower interest rates, sometimes comes with a few red tape items. This is one, but it's really not a bad one. Really what you're doing is you're putting aside next year's required debt payments a year earlier. So you want to make sure that you have those funds in place in the redemption fund prior to the payments being made. So that's just a safeguard for the Clean Water Fund loan program. The second is there is a requirement for an equipment replacement fund, and that equipment replacement fund will require a deposit of $232,890. Brian just shared with me earlier that you are well over that amount. You're at about $313,000 already in your equipment replacement fund. So that'll play into this as well, but that's good news. It's not something you're gonna have to additionally fund. You already have the funds available in the equipment replacement fund. And the loan closing is scheduled for July 10th, 2024. So the recommendations, hopefully here, are to approve the resolution, which will put in place this financing with a closure again, a loan closing on July 10th, 2024. And to make sure really that you work with your auditors to create the redemption and the equipment replacement fund. We will make recommendations as we typically do to your auditors so they know exactly why. But they can also find it in the actual agreement. In the agreement, it spells out very clearly what those requirements are, and there's a payment schedule in here that shows it as well. And then finally, we want to make sure you work with your engineer to make sure all disbursements are approved and filed prior to the closing. So those are some of the additional requirements that come with a Clean Water Fund loan as well. So in sum, it's really what we expected to see. We're very happy with the rate that has continued to be low at through the Clean Water Fund loan program. Keep the payment down and the impact to the user rates down as much as possible. And then it's really a matter of making sure that you meet the other requirements that have been spelled out in here annually, the redemption fund and the equipment replacement fund, to make sure that those are in place going forward. Finally, what I would say is I think we've built out a longer range capital plan for both water and sewer. This is part of that plan, and this fits within everything that you have seen up to this point. If anything, it's a little bit better because of the rate than what we had estimated when that plan was put in place, because it's a bit of a unknown where rates are gonna end up. So I think we were using a slightly higher rate than this when we were providing an analysis as to whether or not your rates were in place to meet that coverage test. So the 371,000, or almost 372,000 annual payment is a little bit lower than what we based our calculation on, which is good news. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions from anybody? Yes, sir.
I just have a question on number 3. I maybe misunderstood something that you said. The redemption fund just needs 1 month of the upcoming principal and interest, right?
Yeah, and you make payments twice a year, so you're really funding it. It's a constant funding of that equipment or that redemption fund, because you're building it up in advance, 1/8 a month essentially, until you make the payment. So yeah, you're funding it monthly as it's going into the redemption fund. But it's not all due at one time. You can build it up over the couple of months before the next payment is due.
Any other questions? Otherwise, looking for a motion on that item.
Make a motion to recommend approval of resolution 24-18. The resolution is authorizing the issuance and sale of up to $5,709,010 in water and sewer system revenue bonds, series 2024, subject to staff and financial advisor recommendations.
Second.
We have a motion by Olson, second by Wells. Any further discussion? All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 6 on the agenda is appointment of interim clerk Pamela Wolf, with Ms. Gonstead being her last day here with us here on Friday. I will make a motion to appoint interim clerk Pamela Wolf.
I will second.
We have a motion by Heckendorf, second by Engelhardt. Any discussion on this item?
I just have one question, Jen. With her doing these other duties, is she gonna be compensated any differently for the time that she's doing it? So we giving her anything else for taking on these extra job duties?
I have already made some arrangements that pending appointment, there would be an additional amount available. I do want the board, though, to recognize that in previous arrangements, we had a salaried employee providing the interim duties, and so therefore it is not a one-to-one. In this instance, we do obviously want to recognize and acknowledge Pam for rising to the occasion, but because we do have other access for or opportunity, I can just generally guarantee that yes, there's a potential increase, but it is not the exact that of what a former salaried employee was provided, because they otherwise don't qualify for hourly compensation via overtime or comp time.
Any other questions? All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 7 is ordinance 24-09, amending ordinance section 30-1 of the Village of Jackson pertaining to offenses against state laws subject to forfeiture. Looking for a motion on that item.
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of ordinance 24-09.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Olson, second by Emmerich. Any further discussion on this item? All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Second.
We got one thing first. So I'm gonna make a motion to suspend the rules for the second reading of ordinance 24-09.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Heckendorf, second by Emmerich to suspend the rules for the second reading. So roll call vote, please. Aye.
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 So looking for a motion for the second reading.
I'll make the same motion.
All right.
Second again.
All right. Motion by Olson, second by Emmerich. Any further discussion? All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Kripke, second by Olson, or Emmerich to adjourn. All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thanks for coming.
Will they get the rest of the week with no rain?
I wouldn't count on